Hello, it looks like we're live. I'm Kim Trathen. Let me check. Want to share this into my group because they normally expect live streams to be right inside of there. So, okay, wanted to come live and share about your self-concept. So, all right, I'm just sharing this inside my group. Decided to go live from my personal page today. Okay, hopefully that is sharing in there because I think this is really important for everybody to hear. And I just wanted to share this because regardless of what you're doing right now in your life, if you work for somebody, if you want to start a business, if you have started a business, your self-concept is something that before I became an entrepreneur, I never really thought much about it. I'm just making sure this is actually live in my group. Hopefully it is. Yes. Okay. We are officially live. All right, so self-concept. Before I became an entrepreneur, I never even thought about this. I really thought, like I knew people had personalities, but I didn't think about what my self-concept was, which means, like in layman's terms, like literally what you think about yourself, right? How do you act? How do you talk? How do you communicate with people? What do you believe to be true? What do you believe to be possible for you? These are all parts of your self-concept. And it's not something that you're necessarily born with, but it's something that we develop over our lives. Kids have a snow day today, so you might hear them in the background because, right, we're like not shaming moms for working with kids at home. So you're not born with your self-concept. It's something that you develop over life. You develop it, you start developing it right away as a child from all the messages that you hear. But we can choose to develop a self-concept that we want to hold about ourselves. We are not a slave to what we currently think is possible for us or what our current situation is. So, for example, when I was still an employee and I knew I wanted to start my business, I had adopted the self-concept of an entrepreneur while I was still an employee. So the way that I did this, I remember a specific morning I had a meeting with my bosses and I thought to myself, like I was kind of dreading it. I didn't really want to go into the meeting. It wasn't something that I was really looking forward to. So I asked myself, if I was already this entrepreneur running my own business, how would I treat this meeting? And I thought, well, they would be my clients. I would treat them like I would treat any client. Okay, even though I was an employee going into a work meeting. So for me, what that looked like is I decided to adopt the mindset that this meeting was going to be a really interesting conversation that I was having. I decided to adopt the mindset that my voice mattered, my opinions mattered. I actually stopped that morning and hi Allison, I bought my boss's coffee before we had this meeting. That was never something that I had done as an employee. But when I started taking on this self-concept and started developing my self-concept to become an entrepreneur, well, that's definitely something that I would do as an entrepreneur. Of course, I would bring clients coffee to a meeting. Like, why wouldn't I? So I started conducting myself differently, even though I was in the same situation. I was still an employee in that job. I wasn't an entrepreneur yet. I have a husky staring at me. Um, So I started to adapt that. I developed and adapted the self-concept of an entrepreneur. Go lay down, honey. Go lay down. Um, as that developed in me, I started treating myself differently at work. I decided ahead of time that I wasn't beholden to what everybody else said there. So, for example, I think this happens a lot in um, places of employment when you're an employee. But my boss came to me and was unhappy about something that I hadn't given him a copy of. And instead, old Kim, that had the employee mindset, would have been like, oh my gosh, he's so mad at me. I should have known that he wanted a copy of that. And I would have beaten myself up mentally for it. And I would have felt really bad about myself. But Kim, who was still an employee and had adopted the mindset of an entrepreneur, I was like, no, I didn't give you a copy of it because I gave it to so and so. I also, Kim is an employee. There was a day and age when I would have freaked out when the president of the company said to me, did you start a business? And Old Kim, who had the self-concept of, I have to do what they say, their opinions are more important than my opinions, their voice matters more than my voice matters, right? Like all these different things that I held to be truths. When I had the self-concept of an employee, like I'm going to let them down, they're going to be mad at me, this is going to look bad for me. Okay, the president of the company is saying, did you start a business? I would have panicked. But Kim, who had adopted the mindset of an entrepreneur, was like, yeah, I did. Right? Like all they had to do was Google my name and they would have known I started a business. Like I wasn't hiding anything. This wasn't anything of secrecy. But when I had the self-concept of somebody that didn't know what she was doing, somebody that needed other people to tell her what to do, somebody that was trying to just please other people in the work environment, that would have been horrifying to me. But I had adapted and created and cultivated the self-concept of an entrepreneur before I was even running a full-on business, right? Like the self-concept came first. The self-concept is what helped me sign my first clients because I decided I am an entrepreneur, right? So many early stage entrepreneurs, one of the biggest things that holds them back, and this isn't just for entrepreneurs either. I see this in people's personal lives too. Like they want to do something and they don't think they can. It's almost always because of your self-concept, right? You just don't think that you can do it, so you're not taking the steps to become that person, right? So when I was sitting in that meeting and the president said, did you start a business? I was like, yeah, I did. And then I shut up. Old Kim would have been like word vomit everywhere, right? Trying to make it like okay and make them feel better and make them know that I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't using company time. And for me, I realized I was very much an over talker and an oversharer of information because I was trying to make myself feel better, because I was uncomfortable with the silence in the space, because I felt I was afraid of what they were thinking if there was too much silence in a conversation. But when I developed the self-concept of an entrepreneur, sure, I still love to talk, but it's okay to give people a minute to process. So I realized something that I could tangibly do for myself as an employee was to have a cup of coffee, a glass of water, or if we were at lunch, take a bite of food. So the president said, are you running a business? I was like, yes, I am. And then I just waited. I let them talk. And he was like, oh, that's amazing. What are you doing? And I told him I help women grow their businesses. And he was like, so I feel like I just have to ask, does this at all like encroach on your work here? And I was like, no, it doesn't. And that was the end of the conversation. There was no oversharing. I didn't feel obligated to tell them how many clients I had or how much money I had made, right? I just ended the conversation. And that was all tied back to that self-concept. It was that work that I did in the beginning to develop the self-concept of this is who I am now. I can run a business. And at that time, I was still an employee too. Like I can do both. It's okay. I have that right and that privilege. So what I see this, or how I see this happening, where I see this happening a lot with entrepreneurs is either they're terrified to start the business, right? Because their self-concept isn't there yet. Or they've launched their business, maybe made a few $1,000s and trying to scale to that first 100K. It's a really big hurdle for a lot of earlier stage entrepreneurs, right? And then once you hit that 100K, there's another shift in your self-concept that happens as you're scaling to higher and higher levels, right? What got me to 100K is not going to get me to 500K or a million. And it's the same for you. That's where the saying comes from, new level, new devil. Whether or not you're in business, you may have heard it. If you're in business, I would be shocked if you haven't heard it. New level, new devil, because the person that you became to launch a business is not the same person that you become to hit 100K. And the person you become to hit 100K is not the same person that you become to hit 500K. It does not mean that we are like becoming unaligned with us as a person. It does not mean that we don't have standards. It doesn't mean that we're willing to do anything to make a buck. What it means is that your self-concept of what you believe is possible, your self-concept of what you're willing to do, put yourself out there, your thoughts about failing, right? If something doesn't go the way you want it, if you have a $0 month in business, that is something that can really F with a lot of entrepreneurs' minds. That is all part of the self-concept. So this is the work that if you've made your first few $1,000s in business and you're looking to scale to 100K and beyond, this is where your work begins. What is your current self-concept, and who are you actually going to be at the six-figure mark? Because that's the person that you can choose to become right now. Just like when I was an employee and I decided I was going to create the self-concept of an entrepreneur, and I started treating myself that way and treating those around me as though I was already a six-figure entrepreneur. So you can make those choices now. Some things that I hear from people, and I want to mention too, this is not fake it till you make it. Okay, you hear that saying a lot too, and I want to point out this is not fake it till you make it. This isn't pretending something is true that isn't. This is actually an internal change. It's changing the way that you think and perceive yourself, which is wildly different than fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it is like, I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm just going to put on this show. And that usually feeds into imposter syndrome and people spiraling out because they feel so crappy about themselves. Okay, developing your self-concept is making active choices about who you're going to be at that next level and treating yourself and acting that way now. So to give you an example, a lot of women that I work with have made a few $1,000s in business. They're trying to scale to that first 100K mark. Some are scaling beyond. But when you're at that position, you've made some money in your business and you're trying to get up to 100K, ask yourself, what does the 100K version of me do? Okay, if you're scaling beyond it, what does the 500K version of me do? What does the $1 million version of myself do? What does the multiple six-figure do? Multiple seven-figure version of myself do? Some things that I have seen a lot with my clients that I work with that are at those earlier stages. They've made a few thousand in business and trying to scale up to 100K in business. Some things that I've seen is like they feel like they're winging it every time with their clients. They haven't really figured out what process they run their clients through, what deadlines they need to have. Setting boundaries is something that they haven't done well yet. They haven't figured that out. Sometimes they don't have contracts in place yet or the right payment systems. And all of those things, you can sign clients without having all of the I's dotted and the T's crossed. You don't need a funnel and everything else to start signing clients. But when you're working on your self-concept, what does that next level version of you have inside of her business? Does she have contracts? Does she have a system in place? Because if you've signed a few clients without a system in place, meaning like, so for example, one of my amazing clients does like website design. She didn't have it mapped out like, oh, here's how long it takes to do this piece, and then I'll need this from the client, and then I'll have to communicate this to them, and then we'll do a check-in, or I'll have them review it, or I'll need the next step of information from them. She didn't have that process mapped out for her client, so she felt like she was winging it with every client. And what typically happens when you feel like you're winging it with every client is you don't feel really secure in who you are inside of your business. So ask yourself, what does 100K version of you or six-figure version of you or multiple six-figure version of you, what is she doing that you're not doing right now? And then go to work on creating those things now. Maybe it's how you talk about yourself. Maybe it's how you take care of yourself. Maybe it's some of those business systems and processes. Maybe the next version of you, that 100K version of you, maybe she's so much more confident on sales calls. Maybe she's raised her prices. Right? It's another trap that a lot of people fall into is there's a balance when we're setting our pricing because you want the value to match the price. Like you want them paying for what they're going to get. So many people undercharge for their services. Okay, so really think about that. Start to pay a lot of attention of what your current self-concept is. This is work that you haven't done before. It can be really eye-opening to see how you're talking about yourself and what you think about yourself. And then realizing, oh, I actually have a choice if I think and believe that, or if I want to choose to cultivate something new, right? To create new beliefs about myself and what is possible and how I handle myself. And it's like this ripple happens out into the universe because when you elevate your self-concept, other people take notice. Conversations happen differently. Opportunities open up. Clients start coming in. You start closing at a higher rate or you raise your prices. You come up with new ideas. You spend time being creative in a new way that has been totally opened up to your brain because of the increase in self-confidence, because of up-leveling your self-concept. All right, that is it. I hope whether you are an entrepreneur or not, you really start paying attention to your self-concept and start mapping out how you're going to hit these goals. And if you are an entrepreneur, connect with me. think this is public. Maybe we're not connected yet. I also have a Facebook group, the Ambitious Female Entrepreneurs Society. I would love to have you come inside of there. And if up-leveling your business is something that you're really looking for help with, you can DM me here or go out to kimthebusinesscoach.com. There's just a free consult link that you can fill out, and we'll talk about what's going on in your business right now, where you want it to be, and what it could look like if you were to join my 6-month container. My 6-month coaching container is how I support my clients. One-to-one private coaching, just you and me growing your business every week together over 6 months. KimTheBusinessCoach.com or send me a DM. Have a wonderful Wednesday. I'm actually going to go out and shovel snow now. We got hit pretty hard, and I'm going to get the boys off gaming and outside, and we are going to go enjoy the weather. Bye, everyone.